Hi everyone, here's the Bookchemist once again, and before I introduce you to a few key, very interesting, stimulating articles and essays from the month of June, I want to introduce you to a whole journal, which is C21. C21 is an open, online, free journal dedicated to the study of contemporary literature, 21st century literature, and if you head to their website and browse through their list of articles or issues, I am certain you're going to find some stimulating discussions, some stimulating academic essay on a work that you hold dear. Very recently they published articles on everything actually Extremely Loud, Incredibly Close by Jonathan Safran Foer. They published an entire issue on the concept of the Anthropocene. I'm going to talk about an article from that issue in a second. They published articles on Dillon, on a comparison article between White Noise and Zero K and Cosmopolis. Take a look and I'm sure you're going to find something of interest. The article I'm going to talk about today is a piece by Sarah Dillon which discusses the concept of the horror of the Anthropocene, in particular in the fiction The Road by Cormac McCarthy. Post-apocalyptic novel, one of my favorite among McCarthy's novels, and Dillon's article, I loved it for a couple of reasons. The first one is that the core concept in the article is that it analyzes and reads closely The Road as a piece of horror fiction and looks at it by considering some ideas, some structural ideas about how horror fiction is structured and is articulated generally. This is amazing because, as I've talked, I think I mentioned this in the past, academia tends to do the very opposite. They take a work of genre fiction and consider it as genreless. This happens a lot, for instance, with House of Leaves by Mark Danielewski. Many articles on House of Leaves tend to dismiss the fact it's a horror novel. Yeah, it's actually a novel about philosophical issues and notions of the self, masked as a haunted house narrative, as if the two things were in any way in opposition to one another. Dillon does the very opposite. It considers The Road as a straight-up work of horror fiction. If you're interested on this idea throughout the entire oeuvre of Cormac McCarthy, I also suggest you read an essay by Michael Chabon called Dark Adventure, which is featured in his Maps and Legends collection of essays. It also deals with the fiction of Cormac McCarthy in general as pretty much adventure fiction, even though people nowadays once more tend to consider it as literary or genreless or whatever you want to call it. The other reason why I like Dillon's article very much is because it points at an issue I myself have with much post-apocalyptic fiction and also with much dystopian fiction in fact. Many people recommend to me works of post-apocalyptic or dystopian fiction because in the past I filmed some videos about those. I actually read a lot of those a few years ago when I was an undergraduate, but I've grown a bit tired of the genre. The issue I have with it is that, to me, very often post-apocalyptic dystopian fiction too offers you this very bleak vision of the future, of this inescapable, terrible future where everything has gone to shit. But I find some sort of victim complex in that type of fiction. It's not like there's anything wrong with it. It's not like I don't think it can be soothing at times to just revel in the despair of it all. But to me, the real horrifying thing, the real hideous thing about ecological disasters, as much as with political disasters, is the fact that they keep recurring and they keep getting worse and that they can be overcome and sometimes are, but these only leads to new, maybe larger problems. Dealing with a world where everything has already gone to shit really takes away the worst part of the problem, which is that you actually still need to deal with it all. There's a form of self-rage and self-pity in that type of fiction that can be very liberating, but at the same time I find much more horrifying and much more powerful the notion that we still have to deal with all these problems, which is not at all to say by any means that there's anything wrong with dystopian fiction or post-apocalyptic fiction done in that way, or that I have any issue, or Dillon herself have any issue with The Road by Cormac McCarthy, which once again is a novel I adore. This is just something that's good to discuss. I think it's interesting to discuss these things, to look at these genres and these issues under new lights. And if you read Dillon's article, let me know what you think about it. Moving on, the other must-read article I'm going to recommend in this video is a piece by Frankie published on the Paris Review about a class she took as an undergraduate in City College about Ulysses, a class on Ulysses that basically changed her life and that basically changed the way she looks at literature. And it was such a beautiful read. It reads like an amazing short story. It made me think back to so many classes I took throughout my university career, and I could relate with so many of her takes on the whole concept of studying literature in college, on the value of studying literature with the professor who knows their shit, with people who are as passionate about it as you are. And some of you will be competitive and they'll always want to answer the professor's questions. Some of you will be quieter, but they'll always be stimulated by what others are contributing. Some of you will just keep saying idiotic stuff that makes people laugh at or with you. And even beyond the study of literature as a noble pursuit, as the study of some of the good stuff that exists in the world, some of these classes can truly change your life, can truly change the way you look at things, or you consider yourself, or the way you shape your own personality, or whatever, depending on what works you're studying, on what the subject of your classes is. It just took me back to amazing times. And at the same time, another thing I totally subscribe to, I mentioned in the article, is this idea. This woman attended City College in New York. This idea that you do not at all have to go to Ivy League colleges, that the whole concept of the Ivy League is sort of a scam. You don't need to go there in order to enjoy a better or full education, and that you can have the best education possible at whatever humble institution you attend. And I 100% agree with her. I attended about 4 universities in my career and have had direct experience through friends, through classes of so many others. And I can absolutely agree with that. I'm especially saying this to the people among you who are British and maybe American too. In Italy, where I come from, sure, there's this idea that say the Bocconi in Milan is a prestigious place to study business, or that some subjects are taught better at certain universities rather than others. But if you go to Bologna rather than Venice, rather than Naples, you won't be looked at with that type of religious reverence that sometimes is expressed as adoration, sometimes actually as rage, that people in the UK, for instance, have for people who go to Oxford or Cambridge. In my personal experience, I've met incredible, amazing people studying at these institutions, at Cambridge, at Oxford, doing incredible work, and also idiots who don't deserve to keep the door open for the first-year undergraduates I teach at a non-Russell Group university. So yeah, one thing that those places, those universities that rank very high in international charts are good for are your career prospects, because your future employers will be very impressed if you attended one of those. All I want to say probably is that, yeah, when you start a literature and English degree, a foreign literature degree, making lots of money, having a good office it doesn't make sense if those things are at the very top of your priority list. But what do I know? Another amazing article, I'm becoming really the Paris Review's bitch, but they publish a lot of interesting articles. Another one I think you should read is a piece by Anthony Madrid about 6 books that we all should and could write. You find all the time lists of books you should read, books you should read on the beach, books you should read before you die, those types of things. These are books you should actually write. And they are crazy, absurd books, books about diaries recording everything that happens to you in your life, or at the opposite, diaries recording everything that happens to the people you know and meet in your life. A book about lists of things that are important to you, things you find cute, things that make you feel dirty, 30 books about forbidden things that you're not supposed to say out loud. It's really an interesting list, and the one book I actually would like a lot to write is the Palgrave's Golden Selection, Palgrave's Golden Treasury, which is this anthology of amazing British poetry. Madrid thinks that what you should write is your personal golden treasury, a selection of poems that are very relevant to you. I'd love to collect all the poems I love, the beginning of novels or ending of novels or excerpts from novels that I keep rereading all the time, the first pages of The Name of the Rose, the first and last paragraphs of most of Lovecraft. I'd really love to collect those things in a single volume and carry it with me all the time. Do read the article, because really, even if you don't want to write all of these absurd books, this is just really a great list of some of the craziest books that were ever written throughout human history. Last article I'm going to suggest is an excerpt from John Atkinson's Abridged Classics, which is a comic strip volume presenting in comic form, in the form of comic strips, all those great classics of literature we should all read before we die, but probably won't because of reasons. And it's absolutely hilarious. Just look at the excerpt, it's amazing, and I can't wait to get my hands on the full volume because it's just so much fun. And do let me know in the comments what articles, essays, stories from the month of June were especially relevant to you from the macro world of literature, and let me know whatever passes through your mind in the comment section below. Every week on my Patreon page I publish these collections of essays I found interesting in the course of the week, called This Week in Literature. There are links, as of course there are links to all of these things I mentioned in the description box. And thank you for watching, guys. In a second you'll find links on the screen to other of my videos. I'll see you in the next one. Bye, guys.